I'm Sheena. I'm a case manager. I've been a case manager for 15 months. When I first came to my job, I was very grateful for the organization that I walked into. Interestingly though, as time went on, I felt overwhelmed. There were so many charts around me. There were so many things yet to do, and this was unfinished, and that was unfinished, and this was important, and this was less important, that I had trouble holding that information and knowing what to do with it. The caseload cleanup was an opportunity to really get a hold of my caseload and know who my people are. First Monday of the month or the Tuesday, I allot time in my Outlook calendar, it's on the calendar. I print off my Gold Care caseload and my Paris caseload, and I cross-reference the two to make sure that I have a balance of numbers. And while doing that, I refresh my mind as to who is going forward for FAB, who is the next candidate possible for surveillance nurse. So I'm actually getting a good grip of my caseload. What I'm finding is that as I do the caseload cleanup once a month, it's not taking me as long, it's taking less time each time as I become more familiar with what I'm doing. Last time I did a caseload cleanup, I think I was done in a couple of hours. When I have a client given to me from the surveillance nurse, a client who's developed some complexity of some sort, she's giving a client to me and I need to be able to give her a client back. So the caseload cleanup enables me to look on my clipboard and say, oh, I have a client ready to go. And it's a process that has become more familiar and quicker. Now I have clipboards that are kept in here. So I have this one here that tells me who's good for surveillance nurse and who's been put forward for first available bed. The actual matching of my clients for surveillance nurse doesn't take very long. I match the numbers from Paris to Gold Care, make sure that everyone on Paris is on Gold Care. That only takes a few minutes, and then I can pretty much look and identify straight away who is good for surveillance nurse. I assign an hour time to do that, and it takes me about a half an hour. The Outlook calendar it's like a brain for me. This is where I put all my information so that at the end of my day I can walk away and not be too concerned about the volume of work or what's left outstanding. It keeps track of all of my outstanding work, and it keeps track of all of my visits, and it gives me structure to my day that makes me feel more comfortable. So when I come in for the day, I look at what I've scheduled myself for the day, and I think about how my day is going to look, and I plan, and it might evolve. There might have been some things that I want to do differently. I find that also part of having control. So if I've assigned myself all these home visits and then I'm thinking, well, I think that's a little too much, then I can reassign them to another day quite easily. The things that I'm tracking on my calendar are all of my home visits, my telephone calls, tasks that need to be completed, meetings that I have, education that I have. I try to keep my time slots, so if I'm saying I'm going to phone this person at 9 o'clock, I put it in at 9 o'clock, and I probably give myself 15 minutes to half an hour for the phone call and to document what I've had a conversation about, or to take up any action that I might need to do. When I go to see a physician in the community to talk about our shared caseload, before I leave that meeting I schedule the next meeting, and that then gets put into my calendar. When I've met with a client and we've developed a plan of care or health improvement plan, I might say that I'll contact you in a week, or I'll contact you in 2 weeks, or I'm going to come and visit you in 2 weeks. Whatever is appropriate for the items that we've identified on the health improvement plan, that goes into my calendar too, so that I can keep track of who I'm going to be visiting when. The clients that come out of the hospital with the short-term hours, definitely a time factor to take action. I put them into my Outlook calendar. So if I know that say short-term hours are going to end on Friday, then in my Outlook calendar I'm going to make an entry, and it will start with STH, which stands for short-term hours in capitals, and then the client name, and within the box of that appointment I make a note, short-term hours are going to end on Friday. Something simple so that it triggers me to phone that client or visit with that client, knowing that this is If I don't, then the service will end. It's really helpful for convalescent because convalescent for the 6-week period, we have to review that every 2 weeks. And this client may not become a long-term care client, and we may not actually be visiting with this client. But there needs to be some contact, and I need to keep track of those hours. They need to be reviewed, they need to be clawed back if appropriate, or if I'm identifying this client as needing the help, then we're either looking at an extension of short-term hours or admission to long-term care. The other advantage to putting this information into the Outlook is if I'm absent from the office for a day or whatever, then the clerical, they look into my calendar and look through what I had planned for that day. And if in there they read this client's short-term hours are going to end, then they can notify the case manager that is covering me that there needs to be action, there needs to be some sort of contact with this client so that the client remains safe in the community. The taskbar in the Outlook gives you an option of just making a note, and then you can also put a date attached to it as to when you want that task to be completed. Some things are something that has to be done in a reasonable amount of time. Others are things that I think would be beneficial if I get to do that task. So once it's completed, you get an option of checking it off, which is quite satisfactory to know that you have checked and done and completed that task. And then the best part is that you delete it. Other things that are in the taskbar are, I have a home visit planned for a client, but it's not going to work. There's various things happening for myself or my work day, or maybe even the client. I've put it into the taskbar to alert me that I must contact this client and have a conversation about when can we meet. So that's the information that I don't have to hold in my brain anymore. It gives me greater capacity to focus on one task at a time. I used to have a piece of paper that marked off all the tasks that were required for a client, a new client, everything for parasite, everything for goal care. But I'm transitioning away from that and moving towards the taskbar. So if I've seen this one particular client and I've done 3 out of the 5 tasks I might need to do for Paris, and there's 2 outstanding, because I'm conscious of the length of my day and my capacity for what I can do within that day, I'll put it into my taskbar and I will do that at a later date. Other things that are in my taskbar are RI reviews, and my caseload in the last 15 months has changed tremendously. We've had lots of change in the office, lots of different doctors leaving. So as a consequence, I have acquired different clients, and over time it would seem that their RIs are outdated. And it bothered me at first because I could see that their RIs were old and I needed to go and see these clients, but the capacity to handle that was initially overwhelming. So now what I've done is in my taskbar I've identified who these people are and the month that the RI would be a good time to do. And then during my day I might phone that person and say, I'd like to come and visit you, and we'll schedule that visit, and then it will go into the Outlook and it gets crossed off of the taskbar. What's happening in our office collectively is we're moving forward with action memos. It's going to accommodate us having all of our files in the filing cabinet. The clerical are now going to know where the files are. They don't have to go looking for files. We used to put the action memo on the front of the file, write down what we want, and the file would move. We ran into various problems. No one could find the file. It was either with this person or that person, and loose papers became lost or potentially would become lost. So collectively in the office, we're now going to complete an action memo, put it into our tray here. Everybody has a tray, and our clerical will come to our office, pick up the action memos, and then she'll take the chart for the period of time to complete the task, and then the file comes back to my filing cabinet. So that is helping us keep track of our files, because that was a huge issue. Now that I feel more organized, I feel like when I leave for my day, I don't have to think about what is waiting for me for the next day. I can separate myself, leave on time, and go home and do my thing.